hello and welcome to episode 51 of Gondor Calls for Ale, a Middle-earth strategy battle games podcast. I am, of course, your host, Sam Gallagher, and with me, as always, is my brother Ben.
Hello, listener or viewer, and welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome back, welcome back. It's only been a couple weeks for you guys, but we took quite the hiatus on recording, so it feels like it's been a really long time.
It does. It does feel like it's been a really long time, Sam.
Yeah, lots has happened in life, I suppose, between the last time we recorded, which obviously wasn't that long ago, but you won't hear it for quite a while. Anyway, it doesn't matter. One of the things that has happened in life, Ben, is we're drinking beer. And of course, that is what I'm most curious about.
Got
And
me
that
with
is,
that.
what are you drinking this evening? Just crash into
Well,
that segment.
well, Sam, I have myself here a Snowmane's Stout. A beer as stout and dependable as Theoden's noble steed. But, Sam, don't ever drink and ride, for never was it more truly said that Snowmane was the death of his master.
Very good. Very good, yes.
And
Yeah,
what
also
about you,
not
Sam?
good beer to drop on yourself, I suppose.
What are you drinking for this episode?
Well, Ben, I'm having a Helm's Hammerhand home brew. With a bottle of this in your hand, you'll never be unarmed.
That's good.
Cheers, cheers. Not the strongest. It's sort of scraping the bottom of the barrel for the Helm Hammerhand drinks. He's a man of for those with refined taste, but alas, not a widely available beverage thing. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Well, you know, you play him a lot, Sam, and there's only so much you can say about Helm Hammerhand.
Yeah, got to
Or not,
recycle
I don't
the
know.
beers or shelve them.
Have you done a Mighty Hero pun beer yet?
Probably not. But yeah, no, that would be good. Yeah. Oh well. We'll figure it out because I'm sure he will return to the show as he will in this episode, Ben. Because in this episode, do you want to tell our faithful listeners and our dear new viewers what we're talking about?
Well, Sam, we are, of course, continuing our coverage of the Adepticon Grand Tournament with our final 3 games. Our last game of day 1, game 4, when everyone's very tired, worn out on their 4th game. And then, of course, the final 2 games on day 2.
Yeah, it's gonna be some good stuff. We're gonna hear how it all wraps up, and you know, if you're not in tune with the ASBGA, whatever that, the American Strategy Battle Game Alliance or Association, whatever it is, then this will be new and exciting to you. If you are in there, this will be several weeks out of date. Well, not out of date, but several weeks behind when it's actually happened, of course. But
Yeah.
covering the rest of Adepticon. I think, speaking of covering the rest of Adepticon, Ben, before we truly discuss our games, we have to talk about the old tournament bingo. Yes, that's right.
Yes.
It's rearing its ugly head. So this is a Ben's tournament bingo, where if you're viewing, you'll see he got awfully close. If you're listening, Ben, do you want to tell our listeners and our viewers how close you were and where you were foiled?
So I came fairly close. I got 3 across the top, not 5. I didn't have a wizard, so of course I couldn't score. A wizard should know better. And It Will Never Truly Heal was one that I probably could have scored, but chose not to, which is where you have a model just not do anything all game. An army of 20, or however many I had, I can't even remember at this point. It's been so long. There was no opportunity for anyone to loiter around not working for the team.
Yeah.
Didn't do too well on row 2, only scored death, but row 3, Sam, is where we almost brought it home. If only I could have walked to Mordor. The restriction, of course, is that you have to start the game as an infantry model to walk to Mordor, so I cannot have an infantry model in my opponent's deployment zone and have walked all the way there, so I did not manage to walk to Mordor.
But alas, well, very close. But Ben, the reason we're bringing up tournament bingo is because, of course, we have an excellent prize for tournament bingo and have yet to receive any submissions. So if you send us a message on Instagram, on Facebook, send us an email. All of that stuff will be in the description of wherever you're listening to this episode. of, you know, just saying I participated in tournament bingo. If you want to be super spicy and have a screenshot or like of where you've been marking it electronically, or have a printout where you've, you know, marked some stuff off. If you send that to us, I think technically they were due when this episode releases, but we'll give, because we haven't had anything yet. We'll give you until the next episode. So I should look at the calendar, but you know, send that to us, and we would like to be announcing a winner. So this episode will be releasing on the 3rd. So if you send it to us by the 17th of May, you will be in a chance to win, and we will be announcing the winner on the 31st of May. So you've still got some time.
Yeah.
You can get to a
And
tournament if you have
don't
been.
have to. I think at this point, Sam, we're saying you do not have to have scored a bingo to be
No.
winning. We're just looking for participants.
Yes.
Anyone who
Yes.
gave it the good old college try, like me. I sort of tried, and I think in the future, if we bring it back again, we're going to revise how it works. Maybe make it a
Yeah.
little bit easier, or make it a pick and mix thing, so that you can have the opportunity to score every square. Because there's a lot of squares on here that my army just can't score.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but we do want to thank anybody who bother to write in or not. We want to thank people who did participate. It was really fun to have people come up and take bingo sheets, and we hope that you at least enjoyed having it, even if you looked at it and went, "Oh my god, I'm playing in a tournament. I can't think about this bingo sheet," which is definitely what happened to me a little bit.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. I feel the same way. I didn't overly pay attention to the tournament bingo during the games, but then, being that I am Sam Gallagher, the host of Gondor Calls for Ale, I like to say that I always play in a fun, fair, and enjoyable thematic way, and therefore this is for other people, for those power gamers out there who are not as good as I am at being cool. This is to encourage you to do that. I do joke, of course, but as you said, it was awesome having people come up, and it, you know, goes in line with our favorite theme kind of awards and stuff. And in a similar way, I think, you know, there's the potential of branching into like our hobby hero of legend kind of thing, stealing the award from the Two Towers. Contest.
Yeah.
All right.
Samwise's
Well, Ben.
Sportsman, I'll come up with something alliterative later.
Yes. Yeah. Or even if we just go for theme and hobby, you know, like whatever it is, it's just fun to award people who put their little bit of effort, and not just like, oh, I took, you know, all of the good heroes plus Gwaihir the Windlord because that's the place to be, or like whatever it may be. But I think it's about time we move into some game reviews, Ben, to where we talk about stuff. But before we roll into that, we're going to talk about rolling in a different way. And of course, the tournament bingo. And if, dear listener, viewer, whoever you may be, if you were struggling to complete some of these tournament bingos, I can only assume it's because your dice were terrible. And therefore, you should check out our sponsor. Yes, that's right, the Baron of Dice. Ben, the Baron of Dice sponsors Gondor Calls for Ale. He makes beautiful, square-cornered, perfectly balanced, hand-swirled resin dice that I personally guarantee will roll sixes some of the time, and therefore help you achieve such things as Tournament Bingo. You can, of course, get an excellent discount from the Baron of Dice by using our affiliate link, which will be in the description of wherever you listen to this podcast, and the promo code capital G, capital C, capital A, where you'll get a discount. So definitely consider checking that out. Helps us out, helps him out, and will help you out, because you'll roll sixes, sometimes you'll roll fives, maybe fours, threes, twos, or even ones whenever you need them.
Well, that was fantastic, Sam. Highly amusing. Thank you for that. I haven't heard enough of you, Sam. I haven't heard enough. Tell me about your game 4. Tell me how you've been doing. Remind me, it's been several weeks. Tell me how you've been doing up until this point, and then give me some details about game 4.
Yes. Well, to remind you, I will also have to remind myself. I started the tournament, I believe, with a major loss, and then I had a major victory in round 2. And I think a major victory around 3 as well. So going into the secret round 4 that we didn't know about particularly until we were driving to the event, I am 2-1, which is not bad.
Nice.
Ben, we're closing in on that winning record. Still got plenty of games to go.
You say secret round 4, Sam. It's only secret because we didn't bother to read the tournament pack.
Yes, I do. That is very fair and very true. However, I know of at least 2 other people who were like, "There's a round 4 on this day," so we weren't the only ones. Um,
Yeah.
I do also have to say that, alas, I am not the most prepared today. Do not have my score sheet, so I'll be giving a more sweeping overview of my games that will probably go a little bit quicker. And as you will soon see, if you're viewing, I didn't do the best job of taking pictures, so I remember some key points, and I don't remember everyone's names, so for that I also apologize. If I don't remember your name, it doesn't mean that I didn't think you were an excellent opponent. So, Ben, round 4. Round 4, I was playing against Marcello. He was Italian, so probably butchering his name there, so for that I apologize if you're listening, viewing, or whatever. Super nice
Just to
guy.
not remember it.
Yeah, I could have gone that way, but I was like, no. Anyway, so he was one of the other people who didn't realize there was a 4th round on the day. So he told, which he was like, I have dinner reservations, which like if I don't go, I'll lose. I'll lose this reservation, and I guess they had to pay some amount of money, so it was going to cost him some money, and he wanted to go hang out with his friends. Totally understandable. So he was basically like, "Are you okay trying to go fast? We'll get as far as we can, and then at this time I'm gonna head out." And I was like, "Yep, totally fine." So we were playing Clash by Moonlight. I think he probably vetoed first and didn't get rid of Clash by Moonlight, and he was playing a Mordor and Dark Denizens of Mirkwood alliance. So it was the Witch King on Fellbeast, Gurits, a bunch of Orcs, and Black Numenorians. Oh, he also had the Shadow Lord, so it was the Witch King, the Shadow Lord, Gurits, and then the Spider Queen, and I think a Bat Swarm. So I was like, well, Clash by Moonlight's pretty okay for me. I'll just try and get a bunch of +1 to wound throwing spears on him. Do you, Ben? I'm remembering this is our format. Do you want to read Clash by Moonlight for us?
I surely do. I'm glad you kept forgetting our format and talking on those, Sam, because it gave me time to locate Clash by Moonlight in my scenario book. It is, of course, scenario number 6 for those of you reading along with me. I know you're out there also diving into your scenario books. No, just kidding. No one's doing that. All right, scenario number 6, Clash by Moonlight. I'm going to go over the special rules first because it's an important special rule. The dark of the night. Due to reduced visibility, models cannot be targeted by shooting magical powers or special abilities over 12 inches away. However, as it is much harder to avoid a shot in the dark, shooting attacks gain a bonus of +1 when rolling to wound. And there's a bit about siege engines, which doesn't matter in this game. This game lasts until the end of a turn in which one side has been reduced to 25% of its starting number, and we have a cool 12-inch deployment zone. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds for the enemy leader, 2 if you kill them, 3 victory points if the enemy force is broken, 5 if they are broken and you are not. And then you score 1 victory point if you have at least 1 hero alive at the end of the game. If you have at least 1 hero alive and have killed more heroes than your opponent, you instead score 3 victory points. If you've got 1 hero alive and your opponent has none remaining, you instead score 5 victory points. All right,
Yeah.
+1 to wound throwing spears with 30 odd of them, Sam. You've got to be feeling pretty good about skewering some people over here.
Yeah, but he did also have that Shadow Lord, so even when we got close, he spent a point of will, and it's a 6-inch, essentially blinding light, but blinding shadows, we'll call it. So, yeah, the Witch King and magic is pretty worrying, the Spider Queen's pretty good, Helm is almost guaranteed to be off his horse at some point in this game, but as we're playing fast, I'm like, it's funny. I think I said in the last episode, for the man who was like, "Oh my god," halfway through the day, I'm like, "I'm ready for this to be over. I need a nap." This worked out really well for me because my last opponent, my opponent didn't show up, and I almost played the ringer or almost had a bye. And then this time, the guy was like, "I've got to peace out after an hour or whatever it was." So, but essentially, like I said, I don't have my notes, so I can't tell you who won what priorities. But essentially, I'm playing on this kind of Goblin Town table. It's rocks and a couple of these big Goblin Town platforms. And I kind of have Helm in the middle of my army. I have, a captain, or the King's Huntsman and his guys off on top of one of these platforms. And then sort of this big U, or not quite U-shaped, but big line of my guys. And basically that's what happened is I move up. I move my right-hand flank to sort of more make a diagonal line, keep a couple guys on this platform, kind of move them around, and he's just pushing up, obviously keeping the Witch King kind of back, and the Spider Queen off to the side. and basically by, I think it's like by turn 3 or 4, I don't know if I've killed anyone. I've thrown a couple throwing spears, but I think I do I back up a little bit to get another round of shooting. And then we're getting kind of, and we're playing reasonably fast, so I'm not like, because there's obviously that's like, well, I could just slow play him, and then when he has to leave, I'm like, well, dude, like, so now, but I was like, no, let's go. I like playing quickly anyway. So I think there was basically like two or three turns in a row that he won priority, which is obviously not what he wants at all. Mm. And then there was one turn where I believe it was I lost priority. He dives in with the Witch King, calls a heroic, which I think if you go to the next slide, if you're viewing it, I think is probably a picture of that somewhere soon. But yeah, so he like dives in behind my line, and the Spider Queen goes in as well. And I think he calls a heroic combat with the Witch King. Maybe he doesn't even, but he gets a hurl off that like takes helm off his horse, takes a couple people down. And I was like, nice. Boy, this is the game. But he doesn't. I think he maybe he doesn't call the combat. He just jumps in and tags and gets this hurl off that knocks a bunch of people over. I then call a move the next turn. Whether he wins or not, it becomes a move off, right? And I think it's like the Spider Queen or the Witch King calls it. I call it, I think, with my King's Huntsman, because he's just like up on this platform. And I have enough dudes up there and some Royal Guard that I'm able to tag the Spider Queen, because I don't particularly care about that.
Sure, so you want the move off?
I think so. Either that or he shot. No, I definitely did, because he would have run off with the Witch King. So I was able to tag the Spider Queen and the Witch King, and then I got a 4-point trap on the Witch King because I had enough Royal Guard that I was definitely getting people in, and then put a bunch of spears in. And nice. I think we had a tied fight, and I can't remember. I don't think he struck, and I'm like starting to move helm over here. I don't think he struck. I think he was like fine with the roll off. But he must have used a point of might the turn before, or maybe he did strike, but he didn't roll the 6 and didn't have enough might to might it to the 6. Basically, or like I said, I wish I had my notes, because it obviously makes it easier. Essentially, I won that combat, and I had enough attacks, and he was then trapped, and I just threw them all into the Witch King, because I was like, whatever, I need like 6s by 4s or something, and did, I think, 2 or 3 wounds to him, and then he just like failed all of his fate, and he like maybe he passed one of them, but I killed the Witch King with like warriors essentially. And at that point, and then we had some other combats, and I just had a decent turn of killing stuff. Helm didn't do anything; he wasn't in combat, but I killed some of his orcs. I took the Witch King down. The next turn, like I would have. So he was like, all right, well, that's game. Like, I'll call it here. Let's, I have to go to dinner anyway. So this ended up being he gave me the 12-0, which was generous. Like, I was like, we could just score it as it stands. I still would have won because I'd done enough wounds. I hadn't broken him, but like, it was pretty obvious talking it through. I was going to break him. I probably would have killed the Spider Queen, because I then had Helm up on the platform. And so he could have gotten into the Spider Queen this next turn. Mm-hmm. I would have trapped her. I would have got my free strike off. I would have screamed him from the bat. That was kind of a decent way away, but I would have just made sure he wouldn't have got the bat, and I just would have absolutely cut the Spider Queen in half. And then it was basically like the Shadow Lord, he might stop Helm from doing stuff, but yeah, so that was
as that stands, you're up 2 points for leader kill, and 3 points for having heroes alive and having killed more heroes than your opponent.
Yeah.
So you're already up 5-0.
Yeah. So it would have been a major win either way. It just I would have been happy to say, hey, let's call it like a 10-0 or something, but he was just like, just have the full thing, which. I would do the same thing if I was playing a game and had to leave, unless it was like,
Absolutely.
Well, roles are reversed and like, hey, I've killed the Witch King and we know I'm going to kill the Spider Queen. Can we like talk it through and kind of figure, But even then, let's be real. I would just be like, you got it. Like, it sucks. Yeah. I'm winning this game, but I have to go. So this is a conceit to you. But he was super nice. It was a fun game. would have been fun to be able to finish it off.
Well, nice to finish that game early,
Yeah.
and unfortunate the way it ended. A lesson to all, perhaps, to read the player pack. I'm
Yeah.
sure we will continue to not do that.
Yeah, or perhaps a lesson to not make a 6-game GT. It's also, well, I'm sure we've talked about this before, but we haven't mentioned it in this episode. It does just mean that, like, you're at a convention and it was from like 8:30 a.m. to like 9 p.m. and you're like, everything over there is closed now. I have to get up early tomorrow for the last 2 rounds. I didn't get to really see anyone. Most restaurants and stuff are closing. Like, this, if this had been done 2.5 hours earlier, this, like, I would have had an evening. But
Yeah, for sure.
oh well.
Indeed.
All right,
Well,
Ben,
Sam, a
into
good
your
game.
game 4.
Nicely fought. It came down to a move off, and you won it. On to my game for Sam. I was playing against Ted, who had an alliance of Lothlorien, Numenor, and the Misty Mountains with Gwaihir, Galadriel, and Isildur. He also had a Wood Elf Sentinel in there, a handful of Palace Guard, or whatever it is, Guards of the Galadrim Court, the ones that have the pikes in the fight 6. And I think about 33, 35 models, so a reasonably small force, but lots of high fight elves backed up by strength 4 Numenorians. And going into this one, Sam, I'll give you a bit of a recap as to how I was doing. I was 3 major wins.
Hey.
Yeah. So riding high going into round 4, and I think I messed this one up on the veto. Honestly, I got to veto second and decided not to play Clash by Moonlight, which I should have done. My worry was that it's a scenario that's about killing heroes, like killing lots of heroes, killing more heroes than your opponent, and my opponent had 3 heroes for me to try and kill, and I've got lots of heroes who are comparatively squishy. So I was worried about that, but I should have gone for it because having +1 to wound throwing spears is fantastic.
Yeah.
Anyway,
What
so
did you end up
we
playing?
ended up playing Assassination,
Ooh.
which is
good one.
scenario 18.
I was going to say, I believe it's scenario 18 as I flick all the way back here. Yes, assassination, as they say in a hilarious fashion. Here we go. So, we've got 24-inch deployment zones, so you can deploy right on that center line. We've got a game that lasts until a force has been broken, and then on a 1 or a 2, it may suddenly end. We have some special rules. I'll go through the special rules, and then we'll go through the scoring. We have the target. At the start of the game, secretly note down one of your opponent's models. This is your target for the game. This may not be your opponent's leader, unless they only have 1 hero. And then you have the assassin. At the start of the game, secretly note down one of your hero models. This is your assassin. This may not be your leader, unless you only have 1 hero. And then we've got some victory points. You score 1 victory point if your target has suffered 1 or more wounds. If your target has suffered 1 or more wounds and your assassin caused at least 1 wound, you instead score 3 victory points. If your target has been slain, instead you score 5. If your target has been slain and your assassin caused a fatal wound, instead you score 7. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader. If you kill the enemy leader, instead you score 2. You score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. If the enemy force is broken and your force is unbroken, instead you score 3. So, I must ask the crucial question, who was your target and who was your assassin?
So Ted's army leader was Gwaihir. So I had to choose between trying to assassinate Galadriel and Isildur, and I chose Isildur because Galadriel would probably never be in combat unless things had gone terribly, terribly wrong. So I chose to assassinate Galadriel, and Eomer was my assassin, being the biggest.
You chose to assassinate Isildur.
I'm sorry, I say Galadriel. Yeah, I chose to assassinate Isildur, and Eomer was my assassin because he is my biggest, most smashiest of the smashy heroes.
Should have been Meriadoc, Esquire, Rohan. Nobody would have seen it.
That would have been hilarious. That would have been
good.
hilarious. I wonder how that works if Dernhelm is the one that gets the kill, though. Because
It's like, yeah, it was Mary.
it was Mary's extra, it's Mary's die that's in there, the +1 attack that he gives her. It's clearly that one. That would have been very, very entertaining. And we were playing on a Pelennor Fields board, Sam. So I felt that I had the home field advantage, at least, going into this one.
Maybe even the Pelennor field advantage.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. So I took turn 1 priority, and we rode forwards. Galadriel, of course, channels this turn and casts Blinding Light, but we don't care. All of the riders of Rohan, all I think 7 that I have in this force, unleash all their bows, and we managed to kill one of the Númenóreans. We're actually shooting at the Númenórean bowmen, because they're defense 4, which means my strength 2 bows need 5 to wound them. And we managed to kill one of them through the Blinding Light. I think I got 2 hits, got through the in the way, and got a 5 to wound, so that was very exciting for turn 1. Ted takes turn 2, and I move up again, and he sits between these. He's got his whole army parked between these elephants, right? With the Númenóreans behind a line of elves. The palace guard are around so they can spear support. Galadriel's in the center of it. Gwaihir's behind everything, ready to fly out, and Isildur's sitting back there on his horse, and the Wood Elf Sentinel is crouched behind one of the Mumakil's ears, so that it can benefit from its Mirkwood cloak and still try and do devilish singing songs at me. So Ted takes priority on turn 2. I ride forwards. I fire a whole bunch of bows into the Blinding Light and get another kill. And he returns fire and hits Theoden and kills Snowmane. So I spend a point of Theoden's fate, Theoden's only point of fate, to stay on his horse. And we pass it on the 6. Get the 6 on that Horse Lord. My sweet Baron dice, Horse Lord dice. But I'm never sure. Do you spend Theoden's fate for Horse Lord? It seems reckless.
I
Any
do it
thoughts,
with Helm
Sam?
all the time.
You do it with Helm all the time? That's fair.
Yeah, but Helm
He's a 3-attack hero.
Yeah, he's a bit more of a killing machine, so it kind of benefits him a little bit more. I don't know. I think with this one it's hard because you could have been like, yeah, sure, I'll take him off his horse. I'm just going to hide him the rest of the game, but kind of hard to do from Gwaihir.
Yeah. So anyway, I elected
that he is.
Yeah, I elected to burn the fate. And we move onwards into turn 3, where Ted once again takes priority, and he backs up a little bit, so I just move my line forwards. At this point, I'm within throwing spear range. All of my archers are unleashing fire with their bows. Oh, we're not there yet. Getting ahead of myself. All of my archers unleash fire with their bows. All my throwing spear guys throw their spears. And we get another 2 kills this turn. Before all of that happens, though, Galadriel spends 2 points of will to command Éomer, who spends 3 points of will to resist. I think Ted got the 6, and I was not about to get pulled forwards and smashed into by an eagle. So I spent all 3 of his will to resist. And now we get into the most important turn, the deciding turn of the game, turn 4, where I took priority and had to decide, do I go forwards or do I try and get another round of shooting? And I probably should have tried to get another round of shooting. What I didn't want to happen was his lines to push forwards and then be really close to mine, and then for it to go to a move off and for me to lose the move off and not get my charge. I definitely should have, though, just like had a screening wall of riders of Rohan with some holes between them, and then had my throwing spears getting thrown past those and my heroes back behind that so everyone was safe. Anyway, I elected to charge forward. So we charge all of our heroes in, throw some spears on the way in, and then go about trying to set up a big anti-flyer formation, which if you are viewing on the YouTube channel, you can see here, I did my best to spread out all of my bases everywhere so that there was nowhere for the eagle to land. And I did my best here. I think I did a pretty good job of the anti-fly formation. It's not perfect. There's a hole, Sam, if you can look on my right-hand flank there up by the elf line. There's a hole that's big enough for Gwaihir's base to fit in right there, which I definitely could have put a guy in to block out. And the other thing that I wasn't thinking about, but absolutely should have been thinking about, is Galadriel's magic and commanding a hole into my anti-flyer formation, which is exactly what, of course, Ted does. So Galadriel goes first. In fact, I think the Wood Elf Sentinel... no, I charged the Wood Elf Sentinel with a Royal Guard. Never mind. The Wood Elf Sentinel's out of the picture. Galadriel goes first, attempts to command one of my riders of Rohan out of position, spends a point of will and her free one, gets the command off, and moves my rider of Rohan around just enough so that Gwaihir can then swoop in and line up a juicy hurl that's going to knock all of my heroes who have charged in, going to go straight down that line and knock them all over. But before Gwaihir goes in, Isildur slips on the ring, which is the other thing that I had forgotten. In all of my stress about this anti-flyer formation, I had forgotten about the ring. So Isildur puts on the ring and slips through his own battle lines, slips through my battle lines, and pops up behind Éomer, trapping him against the spear wall of elves. Then Gwaihir swoops into one of my riders, and we get into the combat phase. I decide to call death because I can see at this point that the game is over. I have messed up this game. I've allowed the eagle to hurl down my flank. The hurl is coming, and Eomer is about to die to an invisible Isildur. So I just decide, screw it, screw it. We're going to call death this turn. So Theoden calls death, and we get into the combat phase. In the combat phase, Eomer and Daelwyn are both killed by Isildur, who calls a heroic combat. Heroic combat's off of a trapped Eomer, kills Eomer, and then goes into Daelwyn and kills him too. Theoden has to strike up. Doesn't really matter though, because Theoden is dehorsed by the eagle throwing one of my riders down the line, which leaves me only Dernhelm left, who Dernhelm decided to call heroic combat. I saw, why not? If she wins her combat, she can move out of the line of the hurl. So she moves out. She fights a heroic combat, kills a couple of elves, moves into the second line, and does not get knocked over by the eagle hurling. Which was not a good turn for me. So I've lost 2 heroes. Theoden is off his horse, on his back, and I take the next turn priority, and we get a move off. Gwaihir calls a move, and Gamling calls the counter move. Gwaihir wins the move off, and from here it is all over. Theoden, Gamling, and Eowyn are all killed this turn, and it is a major defeat, Sam. 12-0, and over with plenty of time to not be too late after a long day.
Yeah, what a bummer. What a bummer of an army. Yeah, I don't like the riders of Theoden, but
fair enough.
It's funny. I sort of have two thoughts here, right? The first one being, I'll continue what I was talking about, the soup armies, as they were called in 40k, was the big, the sort of where I first heard that term, where it was just like imperial soup. It was like a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and it's like not quite that bad because it's 2 armies and then an eagle, but I just like, where's the theme, man? Anyway, whatever.
Well, so the name of the army in Ted's defense, Sam, the name of the army is Rings of Power Season 2. So he's going for a Rings of Power theme with Galadriel and Isildur. Although, of course, Isildur wouldn't have the ring in Rings of Power Season 2.
Right, and also Gwaihir's not in. The only eagle we've seen in Rings of Power gets killed. And if you really want to go for that, if you want that theme, then you need to be allying in war form Galadriel from the White Council and model her up as a knight. She's not casting spells in Rings of Power. Come on now. Anyway, it's just annoying. I just don't like Gwaihir just getting stapled on. It's like Boromir going in every Lothlorien army ever. You're like, man. Anyway,
Boromir of Lothlorien, Sam.
Right? They gave him a belt. That means he's pretty cool. The other thing I think is interesting, and I think is something that we probably, everyone in the Middle-earth scene should do and would benefit from, but certainly something that I think we would benefit from, is move in anti-flyer formation and say, my intention is Gwaihir can't fit anywhere in here. Is that correct? And then if Ted's like, and then it's sort of impetus on him being like, either you are correct, and then he tries to move that, and you're like, you said he couldn't fit here. We established this. This is my intention. Or then he gets to go, oh no, I think he could fit here, so you need to move that model. And if it just ends up being impossible to fill all those holes, you can have a conversation about making that happen. Obviously, then what would happen after that is he compels the dude and plops Gwaihir there anyway. But it is, I do think that's a pretty big thing to ask. Like, hey, we're cool. Like,
I think it's.
I'm intending to stay out of your throwing spear range. I'm at 18.5 inches. Is that cool with you? And then you're like, yeah. And then if you get to the shooting phase and you're with an 8, you're either like, whoops, I moved too far, or just like, it's fine. Like, the intention was to be.
Yeah, actually, and we did actually have that conversation about like, hey, this is a space, you can't move in here. And I saw where he could move on my flank, and I was just like, I just wasn't thinking about hurl for some reason. I just forgotten, hurl is a brutal power attack. And then the other thing that I think you and I talked about this off air, that I should have done is not just anti-flyer formation for the eagle base, but essentially an anti-flyer formation for an infantry base for the ring bearer. But I had completely, like, Isildur in the ring had completely skipped my mind, and it shouldn't have done. It's an unforgivable mistake, and it cost me the game. So a good learning game, not a mistake I think I will make again.
Yeah, but I think that's the kind of thing where it's like you're thinking about one thing and it doesn't feel the best, but if you're like, okay, great, we've covered Gwai here can't fit anywhere here. Cool.
Yeah.
And then you go into the ring bearer and you're like, ah, shit, well, you were like happy to give me that Gwai here can't fit here because you're seeing this ring bearer that I'm not thinking about. And I'm certainly not saying that, like, it'd be one thing if you're like, no model can fit behind my heroes, right? And then, but, it doesn't matter. I don't necessarily, I'm sort of using this as an example of where it ended up being, like, would have been useful to talk about a thing that I think is just a good in general practice, because it's amazing in games that have, like, actual competitive scenes. Like Lord of the Rings, I love it, but, your big tournament's 100 people, and for many other games that's, or at least for like 40k or Age of Sigmar, that's like nothing. You're like, I went to a 260 person event this weekend, I'm going to another one in a month. Like, they happen way more, so that has a larger competitive scene, I think. And it is amazing that at the top tables you get a lot less like arguments and like this was shitty, that was shitty than you would imagine. And I think it's because those people who are consistently getting to those tables are the ones who are are saying like, hey, this is the deal, and like, this is my intention, this is this. And I think that's an interesting thing too, because you and I are not consistently winning tournaments. We're not consistently playing on tables 1 or 2. You would hope that there are definitely a group of people who are consistently hitting those tables. You would hope that they're the people who are like, I need to make sure that this is all crystal clear. I'm not getting anyone with anything, because, you don't want to be the guy who's won 5 tournaments because they just they just constantly got all these people who just like happen to get to these tables who are there like, haha, I got you with the ring that you forgot about. Again, Ted's a great dude, and I'm not saying this was all the case. It is just an interesting
good example, a good thing to talk about. Yeah, for sure. Stating intentions is very key, and it's something that I have gotten distinctly better about since we started playing games more consistently. And I think part of that is understanding what's important to state intentions about, and when you need to be doing that. Anyway, But enough of my game for Sam. We both managed to wrap up early. Did we go out? We didn't go out for dinner or anything. Oh no, we did. We went out.
Yeah, we went and hung out with some of the Graying Legion, as I think they were once known, and had some few beers, had a good time.
Yeah, and then came back out for day 2. So Sam, your game 5. Tell me all about it.
Game 5. I was riding high. I was on table 5, I think, here. And this is, again, not having notes. This will go through relatively quickly. I was playing, this is the guy whose name I don't remember, and I checked the Longshanks thing, and he's got like a username, not his actual name, I believe. So, alas, I cannot call you out by name. But he was playing also the Riders of Theoden, one of the like 12 people at the event playing them.
Only 7, Sam. Only 7.
7 out of 85. Anyway. He had a different version of the list to you. It was all of the heroes and all royal knights, I believe. Not a rider to be seen. And we were playing on a Haradrim kind of board with a lot of buildings and big stone columns. And we played Storm the Camp.
Storm the Camp. An interesting scenario, Sam. How did that veto break down while I shuffle through my book and find Storm the Camp?
I don't know. I don't remember what else is in that pool. I believe he vetoed second. Let's take a gander at what else is in that pool.
It's retrieval and destroy the supplies, isn't it?
Yes. No.
I found it. Storm the Camp.
It's
Scenario
reconnoiter, divide, and conquer.
Oh, just kidding.
I think basically, I think I got rid of. I can't remember which one I got rid of. I think I probably got rid of. reconnoiter because he was all cavalry and could get past me and would be able to definitely slip a few past. No, I must have gotten rid of divide and conquer because because he had enough heroes that I was pretty sure his small groups of heroes could, small groups could beat my small groups. And then he got rid of reconnoiter because I think essentially like he could get some off but had a much smaller army, or I would be definitely able to sneak a few more off. So
yeah, it's actually a really difficult one, reconnoiter, for the Riders of Theoden, because you don't have enough models.
Yeah.
To like, you need the game to break while you've still moved 3 guys off the table and your opponent hasn't. But for that to happen, you need to lose everything left you have on the board. Anyway, all right. So storm the camp. Scenario 12. We have an interesting deployment zone. We've got 12 inches deployment zone, 12-inch bubble out of diagonally opposite table corners. So we've got 12 inches out of the table corners, and these are also the campsites. The campsites are the deployment areas of the 2 armies. A campsite is captured if during the end phase of any turn you have more models entirely within your opponent's campsite than they do. Should your models leave the campsite, it will no longer count as being captured. Models that are within their own campsite will defend it at all costs. Any model that is within its own campsite at the start of a turn will automatically pass any courage test it is required to make for the remainder of that turn. You score 3 victory points if your forces manage to capture your opponent's camp. If you've managed to capture your opponent's camp and your camp is uncaptured, you instead score 6 victory points. 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader. 3 if you kill them. 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken. 3 if they are broken and you are not. Is this the only one where leader kill is worth 3?
Only one I can think of, but don't know.
Interesting.
But yeah, so this was an interesting one. This sort of like, I could have played it. There are a bunch of these Haradrim houses with stairs and pretty big tops to them. I could have just moved essentially my entire army onto these islands and being like, you have to dismount to come and kill me. Or, just play this weird little game. But I was like, no, that's no fun. What hindsight being, I should have just made him walk to my camp. I shouldn't have fought him in the middle or anything. I should have just been like, come on, man. I had my King's Huntsman and stuff up in the top of the building, so he would have eventually had to take some shots, and just I would have been in a big clump. I would have had fight 5 everywhere, and just had him come at me. But I didn't. We basically ended up having the war in the center, and I think I scared him a little bit with the King's Huntsman taking a shot into, I think it was Dernhelm's horse. And opting to shoot for the horse, and then I think he did the wound, but she horse lorded it. Oh well. But then it was like, hide behind this giant building, and essentially what I ended up doing, you can kind of see in this picture. But we basically had a couple of standoff turns where it was like one guy throws a spear, one guy throws a spear, and so eventually I moved some of my royal guard out to a side and had my royal knights to where they could all like charge in, and was kind of like, oh, if you want to go for charging these 6 dudes, go for it, and then I'm gonna slam into the side. And that's essentially kind of what happened. So he charged in on both flanks. He was coming around this building. He charged into these royal guards. I counter-charged. I think he was maybe able to like tag one of my knights with a sort of like, I can see between this building and this column and get into a guy. But like whatever. So we had this combat, and Helm went in, and I can't remember, but he called death. He called death on a turn. Called a bunch of heroic combats with people, but I had a royal guard within 6 inches of Helm in essentially every combat. So I won a couple of ones, and he was like, "Oh man, I didn't realize they were fight 5," and so like I won against Dernhelm, or I won against a couple of the heroes because we had the tide fight, and I went to the roll off, or I got higher or whatever, and took a few heroic stats off. But that was essentially the problem. Was it like I think Helm eventually, I can't remember, like he had an okay game, but eventually like Helm could handle one of those Rohan heroes, or he could handle a couple of them over a couple turns. Like Helm getting a hero trapped, and Helm, he'll kill that hero. I'm not worried about that. But I think there was a couple strike-offs where he didn't get the strike-off, but he has so many heroes that Helm can't kill them all. And basically what ended up happening is he just like slowly killed through my troops, and I got pretty low, and he won a lot of the priorities or the moves off, and just has so much might. Honestly, it's a miserable army to play against if you're not like set up to just be like, yeah, cool, man, I have a million camels and just took you all off your horses, or I sat back, had a million bows, got lucky and killed all of your horses, because you're just like, it's essentially playing an all hero army. They just with refunding might, and you're like, oh look, I won this fight, and they're like, oh, I'll spend the point of might, or I'll get it back next turn. So, it was an alright game. He eventually just chopped through my forces. We got pretty close. There was on my left-hand flank, he had Elf Helm and a couple of Royal Knights, and I was sort of close to chewing through them. It got down to where it was just Elf Helm. I had my one captain on that side starts to make a break for his camp, and the move off goes to, like, Elf Helm had just got a free might back from gambling, because that's a fun rule, and the move calls a move, the move off goes to him, and he's able to charge into this captain, whereas if I had won the move off, I would have been able to lock him down. The captain would have then been 10 inches towards his camp. He would have had nobody to grab him, and I would have been able to take his camp, and we were getting, like, really close to being broken, so, like, I think essentially within 2 turns I would have been in his camp, and, like, the game was looking like it was going to end. This ends on quarter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was getting close. So, like, had I made that breakaway, I started taking courage tests on my my bowmen up in the building. I was just like, run away, man! But they all passed, which was a little annoying. And I was just like, if I can end the game now, I think it would have been a minor win. But basically, what ends up happening is I've got a couple dudes close to my camp. He's killed very efficiently, and I'm really close to being quartered. I have my King's Huntsman and my archers in this building, who, by backing up onto the back edge of the building, are towing my camp, so they're in the camp. But he's able to tag my captain, who was the one chance I had to break away to his camp. And we talked through the game, and because he was like, oh man, like, you're going to be broken at the end of this, or you're going to be quartered at the end of this turn, like, I'm like, there's nothing I can do, kind of thing. And I was like, no, so we basically talked it through, and I was like, well, if you get your free heroic combat off Daewine here, because he doesn't have to go back towards Theoden, you can catapult him and, like, the 3 guys who put into my 1 arch or 1 royal guard or whatever into my camp, and then you'll take it, because I was like, well, I'll just, this guy it's questionable, and but I still made him roll it out. I was like, this is how you can do it, this is how you can win, this is how you can go for it. Made him roll it out, because I was like, I'll shield with my guy, you got to get the 6 and beat him and kill him, and he did, and he ran his dudes into the camp. So it ended up being a 10-1 defeat. So a major defeat that I didn't play overly well, and I could have, by not having that conversation and not being chill about it, I could have kept it to a minor loss, I think, because
but he was a cool guy, and sometimes it's nice to be like, well, I can't win, let's send someone,
and that's essentially, I was like, I'd rather have you up there at the top. And I got momentarily pretty frustrated with this stupid Legendary Legion that I was playing against. So I was just like, this is such a dumb Legion, I hate this so much. And then I was like, all right, well, pull it back, because, like, this was frustrating, but I don't want to have an awkward game where. So I was like, well, we can be chill at the end of it, because I've lost because I like barely killed any models. So yeah, a major defeat. So I'm now 3 major victories and 2 major defeats. So have to do well in the final round to end on a winning record.
Well, on into my game 5, Sam.
Sounds good.
I was playing against John, and we were playing on a Dol Guldur board. Do love me some Dol Guldur ruins. And John had Iron Hills, an interesting Iron Hills army, Sam. He had Thror, which is not Iron Hills, that's Army of Thror. And then allied in, he had the Iron Hills contingent, which was Murin and Dra, along with an Iron Hills chariot. And the Iron Hills chariot did not have a character in it. It was just the chariot, no captain upgrade. And I won the veto off, and I got rid of... he got rid of Reconnoiter, I got rid of Storm the Camp.
All right.
So we ended up playing Divide and Conquer, scenario 17.
Oh boy.
Because basically, I didn't want to play Storm the Camp against a bunch of dwarves, and he didn't want to play Recon against the cavalry force.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so divide and conquer. We've got an interesting deployment zone. Again, we could have put these in the slides, but screw you guys.
Oh, shoot, I completely forgot about that. We do that, don't we?
It's all right. It's all right. So it is 12-inch deployment bubbles on opposite diagonal table quarters. So you get one and one diagonally across from each other, and you have to alternate deploying warbands in each. We have got the game lasts after a force has been broken. It will end on a 1 or a 2. We've got some victory points. You score 3 victory points if there are more friendly models. Oh, there's a central objective. Important to know. There are 3 central objectives. I know how this game works. There's 1 in the center and 1 on each side of it 12 inches away. You score 3 victory points if you have more friendly models than enemy models within 3 inches of the central objective. If there is at least 1 friendly model and no enemy models within 3 of this objective, instead you score 5. You score 1 victory point for if there are more friendly models than enemy models within 3 inches of either of the side objectives. If there's at least 1 and no enemies, instead you score 2. You score 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds to the enemy leader. If you kill them, instead you score 2, and you score 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken at the end of the game. Interesting, Ben. So that chariot's got to be pretty slightly concerning for your army of cavalry.
Yeah, I definitely let it get in my head. So my battle plan, Sam, was to divide and conquer my opponent. He was divided, and I would do the conquering. I was going to go kill Thror and his warband of Grimhammers, and then I was going to go win the game. That was my plan. And so I set forth to do my plan, Sam. I took first turn priority and rode both of my 2 halves of my army directly at Thror's warband. Pretty obvious what I was doing. No point in second guessing or bluffing or anything. John takes turn 2 priority, and we maneuver some more. The chariot moves up, Murin and Dra move up. Thror moves up. I move forwards. I chuck some throwing spears and managed to get a kill. I got a kill on turn 1 with some bows and another kill on turn 2 with some throwing spears. And then we get into turn 3 where I charge on in. There's the chariot. There it is. We charge in, Sam. Theoden charges in to Thror. We're going to have the old king fight. I could have sent Theoden into some Grimhammers, but no. He's a king. He's going to go fight another king to prove who is the greatest of the old kings. Daelwine is backing up Theoden, and Gamling is with Theoden, and Dernhelm and Eomer deployed together on the other corner and are not quite in position. At this point, they're just behind Thror's battle line. They're 1 turn out, but I decided, screw it. We're going in. The chariot is 2 turns away, so we need to move. We need to move, and we need to move now. So Theoden calls a heroic strike, and Thror calls a heroic strike. Daelwine, of course, gets his free heroic combat, and Gamling is just sitting behind the back lines like an idiot because the chariot has a crossbow, Sam. The chariot has a repeating crossbow, and it just unloads into Gamling, who loses a point of fate and is also taken off his horse, as well as losing a wound this turn. So Gamling behind my battle line on foot, Ben getting out his unpainted dismounts on turn 3. Just because I'm a fool, I could have put Gamling behind a combat fairly easily, or even into combat, and he would have been fine. But that dwarf chariot has a repeater crossbow on it. So in the combat phase, Daelwine's free heroic combat goes off. He kills some dwarves. We get to the strike-off between Thror and Theoden. Theoden strikes to a 6. Thror gets a 4, so we're both at fight 10. Theoden has to spend another 2 points of might to get a 6 to tie the fight for Thror's 6. I just was like, screw it, Sam. We've got free might from Gamling. I'm going to burn all of Theoden's might here. So Theoden is out of might and wins the roll-off. No, I'm sorry. Theoden loses the roll-off and has to spend his point of fate to stay on his horse from Thror. Thror decides to try and kill Snowmane. Theoden's like, nope. Ben once again spends his horse lord for Theoden to stay on the horse. So John takes turn 4 priority. I managed to kill 3 of Thror's Grimhammers that turn. The Royal Guard did not kill a lot of the Grimhammers, but they won a lot of the fights and knocked a lot of the Grimhammers over, which was... Dwarves on the floor is better. They're tough, those dwarves. So John takes turn 4 priority. Gamling gives Theoden a point of might back, because he's Theoden King, Sam. He's getting his might back.
Fair.
And then Gamling calls a move. Thror calls a counter move, and Gamling goes first. So we charge back on into the dwarves, and now Eomer is able to charge into the back. Dernhelm's coming around the other flank. She didn't make it into combat this turn. Theoden goes back into Thror. And we get into the fights. I decided not to call death this turn. I probably should have, but I didn't. I decided I was going to save it because Eowyn was not in combat yet. Out on that flank too, I should also say that Eowyn also called a move to try and get one of her riders out of range of the chariot. She was riding around harassing the chariot, sort of staying near the objectives. So Merry spent a point of might as well. In the combat phase, Theoden calls another strike. Eomer calls a heroic combat. Daerwine, of course, gets a free heroic combat because Theoden is fighting. So Daerwine, free heroic combat goes off, kills some more dwarves. Theoden calls the strike. Thror calls the strike. Thror once again wins the roll-off. They both get to 10. Thror wins the roll-off and slays Theoden, Sam. Kills him dead this turn.
Sure.
Yeah, and we lose 4 Royal Guard, or possibly some riders to some shooting from that crossbow, I don't remember, but I take 5 casualties, including Theoden this turn, but manage to kill 6 of Thror's Grimhammers, so we are catching up. John takes turn 5 priority, so Gamling calls another move, and Dra calls a move, and Eowyn calls a move. Eowyn's move goes first, and she has to charge into Thror, because she's within charge range of Thror, and Thror has just killed Theoden, and she has the price of grief. So Eowyn goes first, she charges into Thror, and then we all charge back into the line of Grimhammers. In the fight phase, I can't call death anymore, Theoden's dead, so we get right into the combats. Eowyn decides to spend her last point of might to call a heroic combat. She's in combat with Thror. We've got Gamling and Eomer are both fighting. Eomer's into Thror, and then Daerwine and Gamling are both fighting some Grimhammers. Daerwine calls a heroic combat. No, I'm sorry. Eomer's the one that calls a heroic combat. Daerwine's fighting Thror and calls the strike. So we strike. Thror's out of might. We're a higher fight than Thror. Eomer's heroic combat goes off. Him and Gamling win their combat, kill a couple more Grimhammers, and then go charging into Thror. So we've got all these heroes into Thror, and we win the fight against Thror. And I start rolling heroes. Sam, I roll Gamling's dice, and Gamling does nothing. I set them aside. Maybe I'll spend his 1 point of might. No, he didn't have enough point of might. Not spending any Gamling's might. Roll Daerwine's dice. Daerwine does nothing. He's got 2 points of might left. Maybe we'll spend some of his might. We set those as dice. We roll all of Eomer's dice, and he gets nothing, and I spend 1 of his points of might to get a wound. So we've got 1 wound on Thror. And then I roll all of Eowyn's dice, and she gets nothing. And I'm like, damn, I'm going to have to spend a lot of might to do some wounds on Thror. And then I remembered, Sam, that Eowyn gets to reroll all failed wounds against the target that killed Theoden, which was, of course, Thror. So Eowyn rerolls all of her wounds and gets 6 wounds on Thror. Yeah, it was ridiculous. She's got 8 dice, and I just like, I think she needs. It was like 5s by, because she gets +1 to wounds, so it was 5s by 3s. Anyway, so Eowyn kills Thror in vengeance this turn, and we mop up the rest of the Grimhammers in that warband.
Couldn't technically Thror survive that?
Yes, he could, because he gets his fate back. He did roll a couple of fate, but he didn't get the fate back from the magic hat enough times. He's only, is it 1 fate, and if he gets it on a 4 or better? Yeah, it goes off on a 3.
He passed it on a 3, and on a 4+ he gets it back.
Yeah. So he kept it a couple of times, and then it wasn't.
Still took enough wounds. That's funny.
Yeah. So John takes turn 5 priority. And I think I called a heroic move with Gamling. He's broken at this turn. The chariot's within charge range. We wanted to get out of range of the chariot. Move out of range of the chariot. Kill a couple more dwarves this turn. And then the game ended on a 2. Sam? And I had not scored the objectives. I had killed the dwarves too quickly. This game ends on break. I had neglected to read the scenario properly. And lost this one. I believe it was 3-8. I didn't write down the score, but he was broken. I wasn't, which doesn't matter. It's only worth 1 point, and then 2 for leader kill. And then he had leader kill and the objectives. I believe one of the objectives was even contested either way, and no one got it. So a good game. I'm definitely misplayed. What I
3-7.
should have done is pretended to rush Thror's Warband and drawn the chariot out, and then turned around and just thrown all of my heroes into the chariot, because I could have one turn killed the chariot with all of my heroes, and then once it's dead, then it's the one that was like the one thing that he had that was putting pressure on me to like do stuff and move fast and get things done and spend resources. Because I was burning through resources to try and kill Thror's Warband, so that Warband would be dead when the chariot arrived, and then I could deal with the chariot, which worked. It's just the game ended on the first roll of a 2. Yeah. It was really rough too, because we forgot to roll it at the end of the turn and went on, and I won priority and started making moves, and then he was like, "Oh wait, we need to roll," and had been his priority, so he just picked up a dice and just dropped it on the table, and it came up 2, and I was like, because I'd been making battle plans for turn 7 and everything, moving around anyway. But a fun game, super fun to lose Theoden. I lost Theoden in round 4, obviously. Fun to lose Theoden, but then get to benefit from the price of grief, and to have Eowyn. It wasn't the Witch King, but Thror's also high defense for Eowyn just to freak out and to kill him with all the rerolls. After I had been like, okay, just trying to figure out how much might I actually need to spend from all these heroes who've got their dice set out. Who's going to have to spend how much might to kill Thror, and then oh nope, I get to reroll. Boop.
Yeah, I mean, you also shouldn't have charged Theoden into Thror. You should have put.
Oh no, absolutely. That was definitely me playing Theoden in character, Sam. This is how I scored a Hero of Legend. Yeah, I gave myself a Hero of Legend for constantly throwing Theoden into combat when maybe he shouldn't have been.
Yeah, fair enough. Very nice, very nice. Well, so you're on what, two major losses and 3 major wins?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, should we get into the 6th and final round?
Let us indeed.
Where, of course, I was reaping the rewards of helping my previous opponent beat me thoroughly, and was playing all the way down on table 11, and I was playing against Julian. And I don't remember what scenarios we vetoed, but we ended up playing Hold Ground.
So vetoing between Heirlooms of Ages Past and Command the Battlefield.
Yeah, I think. He was playing Moria with a Watcher in the Water, so I vetoed Command the Battlefield, and
he got rid of Heirlooms.
He vetoed Heirlooms of Ages Past, which was a bit of a shame because he was, he was a very fun guy to play against, and was like, yeah, this theme game, cool, whatever, and then still made the competitive choice, which I was like, I see what you've done here, sir.
So, Command the Battlefield. No, Hold Ground. Hold Ground. Fuck is it, Sam? I can't find it in my book. You gotta write down the scenario. Hold Ground, Scenario 3. Alright. Hold Ground, Scenario 3, a Maelstrom mission. So no deployment zones here. And we score 3 victory. We've got a central objective. You score 3 victory points if you have more models within 6 inches of the center objective than your opponent. 5 if you have twice as many models within 6 inches. And 7 if you have 3 times as many models within 6 inches of the central objective. 1 victory point for causing 1 or more wounds for the enemy leader. 2 if you kill them. 1 victory point if the enemy force is broken. 3 if they are broken and you are not. Ooh, a rough matchup for Helm on the final round there, Sam. The Watcher in the Water is a bit of a pain to play against. I assume he had a handful of bat swarms with which to do
shenanigans. Yes, he was also allied with the fell beings of Mirkwood, whatever the army is. So he had the Spider Queen and a handful of bats. Ah,
brilliant.
2 bat swarms, yeah. So, and then he had Durbers. I think he also had Groblog. No, maybe he didn't. Don't remember. This game... Yeah, anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute, but Julian had a super awesome Moria Goblin.
Yeah,
I mean, we kind of talked about this stuff, where his army was all converted out of Goblin Town goblins, which was pretty neat, and he had like 3D printed Moria Goblin shields, but the rest of it was converted, and he gave them all like shoulder armor, which he said were made out of like twist ties from a grocery store and stuff, which was super cool, and we were kind of talking about he was like, oh, I love all your all the conversions and stuff, and he was like, they're really subtle. It's really cool. And I was like, yeah, I was looking at your goblins and initially thought they were 3D printed. Then I was like, I recognize that guy's pose. I recognize these things. And he's like, yeah, it's one of these funny things where you spend all this time on an army, and then so many people just assume it's 3D printed or don't, or it's like. And I was like, yeah, it's like if you don't know the Lord of the Rings range, you're not necessarily going to see that I've converted every single one of these warriors of Rohan and kind of thing. So that was pretty cool. But this game, I mean, again, I don't have my notes, but it just wasn't a game. Essentially, I think he rolled sixes or more across the, or not all more, but he rolled his choice on his entire army, and they just all deployed on his back at table edge. I rolled okay for mine, except for one warband, which he got to choose, and he just put it behind basically his entire army. We had a little shit where he just like wiped out essentially that entire warband. Except one of my dudes like survived and killed a goblin, and he just like slowly fed him like one goblin, which was fun. It was just a fun little battle in that corner. But I like killed one goblin and then proceeded to lose the rest of the fights, and then the dude died. The Watcher of the Water basically popped out in the middle, and he did all the stupid goblin stuff where you're like, look, I filled up all of the spaces around the thing, and the only place for Helm to go when I grab him with a tentacle is directly next to the watch, into contact with the Watcher and the bat. So Helm was killed, didn't get to do anything. And I killed the Spider Queen, won Royal Guard, charged it, did a wound with a throwing spear, like won the fight, did a wound to it, then charged it again the next turn and killed it with a throwing spear or something. Amazing. So that was satisfying. Yeah, I mean, it's like she's like what, defense 3 or 4, so sure. It's not not
it's
asking
just funny
for that.
It's a Royal Guard.
Yeah, but and he was a super nice dude, a really cool looking army, but it was just a game where I was like, I've lost. Like we picked the scenarios and I have lost. We picked the scenarios with this matchup and it's just like game over. And so it was a major defeat. I killed basically nothing. He rolled really hot. He was winning like all of the fights and just mushed people, and it was game over. I wish there was more to talk about. Even if I had my notes, this would be a super quick one because it just wasn't a game. It was essentially, I have won this. Let's do some little things around here. Maybe you get to kill a few goblins, but then with the rolls, it was even less than that. It was you get to kill a real small number of goblins and just pick up your models. But like I said, super nice guy. Apparently, he provided a good chunk of the terrain because I think he's one of the main event organizers in Michigan. I think so. He was like, "Oh, you should come." Like he was like, "Get out your you should join our Facebook group." He's like, "Get out your phone right now. I'll approve you." And so I joined the Michigan the Hobbit League kind of thing. And he was like, "Oh, we're having this tournament here," and I would love to go. I'm sure it's I think he does a very similar thing to like some of the Bilbo Birthday Bash stuff, where it's like this round the first person to spend 3 might or like whatever it is, like those kind of door prizes kind of thing, which are events that I love attending. But unfortunately, Michigan is a little bit of a hike, and it would probably involve flying, and it's
yeah, for sure.
Maybe one day. If dear listeners and viewers, you are all to join the Patreon, our sweet Patreon, where you can hear us talk about all manner of things.
Send Sam to Michigan Fund.
Right, you too could help send Sam to Michigan or to the general Texas area. Either one, I'd take it. But yeah, so a fun game to end the tournament on, in the sense that we were both really chill, and we were just kind of we were both aware neither of us were placing, so we did not take it too seriously. A bummer of a game to end it on because it was another major defeat, and I lost my last 2 games, and so I didn't even get a winning record, and it just it wasn't even. There was essentially nothing I could do. Yeah,
it's it was a rough matchup, and out of that pool, I honestly think you wanted heirlooms, and
yes, definitely.
Didn't get it.
But he gets to veto one scenario, and that's the one that where I might win. But even then, even if I pick it up, the Watcher just pops up right behind the dude, kills him, tentacles the dude, and grabs it, and I hope I have enough people that I can kill the Watcher. So even then, it would have been a tough one. But yeah. That's why I'm really.
Dear listener and dear Sam, my dog is protesting wildly and is going to be making noise in the background. So I'm just going to step out for just a sec.
All right. Yes. Yeah. I will say while Ben is doing things in the background and making noise, I'm getting pretty tired of the veto system.
Mm,
I think it's in this situation it probably wouldn't have mattered because out of this pool there's one where I stand a chance, and so there's 66% of the time if you're just picking out of the pool I still lose. But there are so many other ones where I'm just like, this just isn't a game, or you have one bad one that you get to throw out, and it's just. And
yeah.
like I've seen some stuff. I think the Unexpected podcast just put an episode out about how like the meta is stagnated and all of this stuff. I'm like, is it because of the veto system? Yes.
Mm,
You
interesting.
know, or it can't help because you can just take a min-maxed army and be like, I get rid of this one that's bad for me.
That's true. Yeah. It's funny how starting out when it was first coming out, we were really excited for it, and it's been good. It's been great. I still enjoy the veto system, but I think I would enjoy it more if it was like 1 out of 3 tournaments had the veto system instead of
Yeah.
just it's now the standard.
Yeah. Yeah, I just feel like you end up playing pretty much the same kind of scenarios. It does solve some of the problems where like the first Adepticon we attended, Storm the Camp, was the final mission, and it just like 50% of the field ended up drawing because that's kind of the nature of that scenario. But
Yeah, for sure.
anyway, that's my soapbox about the veto system and how I think that making people make all-comer armies and armies that can do okay in most of the missions is more fun than not.
It
But on
does.
to your final game of the event, Ben. Can you
Yes,
pull
fair
it
enough.
out?
Fair
Who
enough.
be the superior Gallagher brother?
So I was playing against Ryan. I'm pretty sure his name was Ryan. I wrote down Brian, and then he laughed and said, "No, people call me Brian all the time. It's actually Brian." And then I crossed out Brian, and then he said Brian to me later. Anyway, so I was confused about whether his name was Brian or Ryan for the rest of this game. I'm pretty sure it was Ryan. Ryan, I hope I get your name right. You were a great guy. And Ryan
Oh,
had.
I-
You reporting
it's
back?
Rian. Rain?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Ryan, perhaps?
Um, had a allied force of Rivendell and Lothlorien, army led by Galadriel and backed up by Glorfindel. And
Mm,
we ended up playing Hold Ground as well, Sam.
perfect. Don't even have to read it.
Don't even have to read it. So I take turn 1 priority, and Theoden is old and slow and struggling to get on his horse and rolls a 1 for his Maelstrom roll and does not ride onto the board. Eomer is also, he's helping Theoden get onto the horse and rolls a 1 and does not ride on the board. So we roll Dernhelm, Deowine gets a 4, Gamling gets a 5, and Dernhelm gets a 3 and spends a point of Merry's Might to make it a 4. So all 3 of those heroes ride onto the board in a big clump. Uh, Glorfindel comes on a 6 and comes in on the middle of the northern board edge. And I've come in sort of south west. I've come in on the southwest board edges. Um, and then Galadriel rolls a 2, so it's my choice, and I put her in the table corner furthest away from Glorfindel, basically. And I have decided to learn my lesson from the dwarves and do what I should have done against the dwarves, which is to threaten one group and draw the other one forwards, and then turn around and smash the other one. So my plan was to threaten Galadriel, like I'm going to send my whole army at Galadriel's warband, which has got 18 elves in it, and there's no way I'm actually going to chop through it, and to try and pull Glorfindel forwards, which is what I managed to do. So on turn 2, I also take priority. Theoden rolls a 3, spends a point of might to make it a 4. Eomer rolls a 2, spends 2 points of might to make it a 4, and they come riding onto the board, effectively surrounding Galadriel's warband. We throw some spears. Galadriel channels blinding light. No shooting casualties. Merry gets a point of might back from Gamling. Gamling calls a march to try and send the rest of my riders further down the board, and that moves us on to turn 3, where Glorfindel has been pulled forwards. He's been riding to rescue Galadriel. Takes us into turn 3, where I take priority, and so we turn around and charge back into Glorfindel. We get Theoden and Eomer into Glorfindel. He's got a couple of riders with him, and the rest of his warband is... Rivendell Knights are with Glorfindel. He's got 3 of them, and the rest of Glorfindel's warband's way behind. Galadriel is way behind as well, and in the combat phase, we've got Theoden in combat with Glorfindel and Eomer in combat with one of the Galadriel Knights. Eomer calls it heroic combat, wins his combat, and goes into combat with Glorfindel as well. Theoden strikes up and gets a 3, taking him to fight 8. Glorfindel strikes up and gets a 2, which takes him to fight 9. But still higher fight than Theoden's fight 8, but that's okay. We get the 6, Glorfindel doesn't, and we win that fight. Take him off his horse. He spends 2 points of fate in an attempt to... all 3 points of fate, I'm sorry. He spent 2, just didn't get it, and then after humming and hurrying spent the 3rd point of fate. And still doesn't manage to save Asphaleth. Asphaleth is killed, and Glorfindel is dehorsed, which is very important. I take turn 4, and we charge back in to Glorfindel, charge into his warband with Eowyn, Gamling, Daewine. We're all going in. We're going to get some kills this turn. We call death this turn as well, Sam. Theoden strikes up. Eomer strikes up. Daewine calls a heroic combat, and Eowyn calls a heroic combat. We get a lot of kill. We don't get a lot of kills this turn. Eowyn's combat goes off. Daewine's combat fails. We only kill 3 elves this turn. Theoden strikes up to a 4. Eomer only strikes up to a 3, so they're both sitting at 8 and 9. Glorfindel strikes up to another 2, so he's also at 9. Tied fight with Theoden. But the roll-off goes to Glorfindel on the Elven Blade, and he kills Theoden this turn.
Oof.
Just straight out turns around and slays Theoden. Which, of course, means that Eowyn and Eomer are freaking out. Eomer's +1 to wound. Eowyn is re-rolling failed wounds and +1 to wound against Glorfindel. So, takes us into turn 5, Sam. Turn 5 goes to Ryan, and I call a move with Gamling. He does not counter move, so I basically get to move in at my own on my own pace. In the combat phase, I call a bunch of strikes with all my heroes. We're just striking. We want to be higher fight than the elves. We've got to kill as many elves as we can. We managed to kill another 3 elves this turn, but importantly, Eomer and Eowyn go into Glorfindel and manage to kill him this turn as well. Once again, it is Eowyn who gets the kill. I rolled her dice first. She got the kill. He was out of fate because he'd spent it all on the Horse Lord. So we managed to kill Glorfindel this turn, and Galadriel has basically been like running forwards. She's almost in range this turn. In fact, she was getting so close that I had moved a screen of riders forwards, and she moved into one of them, called a heroic combat, and goes moving out, which is good because that leaves her with only a single point of might left, and Glorfindel is dead. I take the final turn priority and basically move into kill as many elves as I can with my heroes, move as many riders, Gamling, and as many Royal Guard to within 6 inches of the center, to secure the win. And managed to win this one. This one, it ends this turn. I think it ended on time, and it's a 5-2 to me for
Very
basically
nice.
having more models in the middle and breaking him and not being broken.
Very nice, very nice. So a minor win, but still a win nonetheless,
Yeah.
which will end you with a winning record.
Yes, yes, and this was a fun game. I enjoyed this one. It definitely, he maybe didn't have a super fun game. He should have spent a point of Galadriel's might to not be split up, or I don't know. She rolled a 2 on the Maelstrom, which is rough.
Yeah. But also, I mean, she's also got like absurdly long range transfixes, so she could have been transfixing one of those heroes.
Yeah,
Or just, like,
yeah.
throwing
She
it
did.
downwind.
She did a couple of transfixes. I didn't really talk about what she was doing, but she was only spending 1 or 2 will on them,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
basically, I had enough heroes that because I was Riders of Theoden, Sam, so many heroes that he wasn't able to stay on top of transfixing enough heroes.
Yeah. All right. Well, not a bad Adepticon, Ben. I think that's all that's left is to talk about the placings and the prizes.
Yes, sir. So, give me a moment. I think I still have that saved. Here we go, Sam. Shall I run through our placings?
Sounds good to me.
All right, we will go through with. We're going to start with first place here. Alisher Animov defending again. Won it
Yeah, Big
again. Two
Al.
years running, defending champion. Alisher takes home the win with 35 tournament points. 6-0.
Yeah, yeah, I think the only undefeated.
Yes, I believe so.
What
I
was he
believe
playing? Was he
so.
playing Lake Town again?
Lake Town and. Oh, I've got the list. We've got Halls of Thranduil and
Oh,
Survivors of Lake Town.
gotcha, gotcha,
So Thranduil, Legolas, and a Lake Town captain.
gotcha. Yeah, we don't need to go through the list. I was just curious if you happen to
Yeah,
know.
no, fair enough. In second place, we have my new hero, Richard Lynn, who got second place with Bolg, which was why he's my new hero, Sam. Bolg, Thimble, Goblin Mercenaries, and Warbats. You said not to go through the army list, but it's like an army list that I wrote and couldn't get a winning record with. So well done, Richard. Fantastic, love to see it. And in third place, we've got Ted Cantu, my opponent from round 4, with Gwaihir, Isildur, and Galadriel, Rings of Power, Season 2.
Very nice, very nice. And where did you end up in the placings, Ben?
Ooh, scrolling. Ben Gallagher, 14th of however many players.
I think
80
85.
something.
Not bad. Not bad. The only other placings worth noting here are myself at 34. Pretty bad, pretty bad. But important to note that I am above Cody. The friendliest rivalry since Legolas and Gimli continues. I think Cody went
He
two
got
wins, one defeat, and three draws. So
amazing. 3 draws. Amazing. I don't know how you do it.
I ended up 2 places above him. So there we go. And we didn't play each other this tournament, which is also surprising. But
You guys
yeah,
were
so
often, you were near each other on tables, right? You guys played
that's
nearby each
true.
other a couple times?
Yeah, that is
Hilarious.
definitely true. Yeah. So a good event overall, and I think I got second best, second favorite display board or something. I can't quite
Yeah, you got
remember.
an award for the display board, which was good.
Yeah. I think the person who got it before had this cool 3D printed dwarf stronghold kind of thing, which was pretty neat looking. So
Hmm.
my
Yeah.
my helm hammer hand with frozen water display board can now be retired because it's won an award. So that was cool. Nice to walk away with another one of those cool Adepticon medallions. A medallion. Um, but yeah, a good event overall. 6 games, pretty brutal. If it's going to be 6 games, my preference would be for lower points. Do the 600, 650, 500, 400 points. 400 points,
Yeah,
8
like
rounds. I'd be into that.
Nova was 6 games, but they were an hour and 45 minutes a game because it was 650. This was an
Yeah,
hour, 2.5 hours a game,
yeah.
which was
It
the
was,
correct amount of time. Or was it two? Anyway, it was a long, but it added up to such a long day on day one.
yeah, yeah. It's also like,
But
this is unrelated to the number of games and stuff. 750 is probably one of my least favorite points levels.
yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not my favorite, but that's okay. That's all right. So yeah, a good event, and now of course Adepticon is moving to Milwaukee. It would be
Mm.
interesting to see what that brings.
Millwall driving,
Yes,
not
yes,
Milwalking.
yeah,
Bad pun that I was going
yeah,
for, and then did it so badly I had to explain it.
yes, yeah. I think we've sort of talked about it, and certainly for me, if Golden Demon doesn't return to Adepticon, it will be more of a choice to go or not because it's of
Hmm.
such a long distance and it's very expensive to attend. Not because
Hmm.
the event ticket's reasonable price and the events themselves aren't overly expensive, but it's a hotel for how many days plus all the gas or airfare, so it's just as something that's like the reality is I'm going to play 5 to 6 games of Lord of the Rings. Maybe I'll get a winning record, but probably not, but I'm almost definitely not placing. So it's sort of like this is for fun, but what I really care about is the Golden Demon, which of course to mention, I can't remember if we talked about this in the last time. I sadly once again did not get a trophy. I got a notable entry or something. I don't know. They have multiple levels now. Still pretty cool, but that was a disappointing result as well. So sort of ended up being not an overly successful Adepticon for me, but it was still a good time. Nice to see a bunch of people.
Yeah, it's a fun con, for sure. But Sam, enough about Adepticon, enough of games that were on into games that may be. Tell us, where will we find you in the future?
Well, Ben, or listener or viewer, if you're listening or viewing this on the very day it releases, the very next day, we will be at the Richmond Open, which will be the 4th and 5th of May. There's a GT qualifier event on Saturday. If you end in the top 8, you go on and play then on Sunday as well. And if you don't, you get to play in the second breakfast tournament, which is a 500-point 3 rounds for fun, or potentially more for fun. There are still prizes, and it's a Rob Loader run event, so lots of awesome prizes. He makes really cool trophies and gives away prizes for all manner of silly things. So that's going to be cool. And then after that, it's looking like, alas, I will no longer be able to attend Big Trouble in Little Dale. Still not 100% sure on that, but that's the 18th and 19th of May in Portland, Maine at the HuzzahCon.
You will, of course, still find me there.
Yes, Ben will, of course, be there. 350 points, no hero over 100 points, lots of ridiculousness. I've written 1,000 lists for it. And Henry, if you're listening or viewing, the reason I might not be able to come is because it's not 400 points and I can't play the trolls. That, of course, is a lie. It's, alas, life. Life gets in the way. Doesn't just find a way, it gets in the way, Ben. And then after that, I believe the 8th and 9th of June, I plan to attend Bilbo's Birthday Bash. And I know what store it's being held at this time and won't be going to the wrong one. So, and I'm not sure how many points that is. I signed up for it. I looked at it at some point in time. I think it's 700. Maybe it's 800. Who's to say?
It's been 800 in the past.
Yeah. What about you, Ben? Where can we find you? Any additional events on top of that?
No, I don't think so. I, of course, will be at Big Trouble in Little Dale, and maybe Bilbo's Birthday Bash, who knows. And then after that I think the next thing for me on the calendar is the Nova Open.
Oh, exciting stuff. I have just confirmed Bilbo's Birthday Bash is 700 points.
Okay.
And of course, the Nova Open this year, 1,000 points, Ben. 1,000 points. I'm not sure about it. I've a bunch of different thoughts and feelings. I might actually do a little half-pint episode chatting about what I'm thinking and feeling. If, dear listener or viewer, you're not sure what a half-pint episode is, you can, of course, view and or listen to them on our Patreon. They're shorter episodes, which in recent episodes they've actually been about the same length as these, where we talk about all manner of things. We did a Ben and Sam Gallagher review of all the scenarios, kind of what we feel about them. We're currently going through and doing some faction reviews. We released an example of that on, where you can listen to all our podcasts, so Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all that kind of stuff, SoundCloud, where we talked about Far Harad, but then we covered Helm's Guard, and we covered, what else have we covered, Ben?
Army of the Dead now, Dead of Dunharrow.
Yep, Army of the Dead, and we've got some other stuff in the works. So if you're interested in checking that out, please consider looking at our Patreon. You can get some sweet dice there, and that helps us out. And
enjoyed the video, please do subscribe to the channel, like the video, ring that bell. We really do appreciate it.
Yes, yeah, and until next time, we have been Gondor Calls for Ale. I don't know where I'm going with that, but this show is now over. Thank you for listening to Gondor Calls for Ale. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. We, at Gondor Calls for Ale, are officially sponsored by the Baron of Dice, the producer of premium wargaming dice. These beautifully hand-swirled resin dice have no micro bubbles and are therefore perfectly balanced. With over 3,000 variants and unique designs, nearly every tabletop gaming system is represented. So check out the description of this episode for a link and a discount code. Go buy yourself some new dice and let the good times roll. We at Gondor Calls for Ale are not associated with Games Workshop, New Line Cinema, or the Tolkien Estate. We hope we have not misrepresented or offended anyone. These recordings are strictly recollections of games we've played and are not commentaries on the character or competence of our opponents. They are intended purely for entertainment, and we hope they will be taken as such. You can find us on Patreon, see the link in the description. Supporting Gondor Calls for Ale there helps us continue to produce these episodes. You can find us on Instagram at Gondor_calls_for_ale. Feel free to send us a message there. Or on Facebook as Gondor Calls for Ale, another great place to send us a message. Or you can send us an email at gondorcallsforale@gmail.com. As Boromir, Captain of the White Tower, once said, remember today, listener, today this episode was good.